I was just turning on the recordings to make sure that we've gotten this session captured. Okay. Right. So back to it again. So this is where AWS is. And the thing that remains true is this is what it is today, but people want to go faster, which is why AWS is particularly focused on always delivering the broadest and deepest set of capabilities by constant machine learning. And more importantly, to people of all levels of expertise, right? And at AWS, we particularly see this in three layers. I'll talk a bit more about that in a while, what these three layers are. And maybe I'll start off by doing something that you see on my screen, right? Right now on my screen, you can see something that says Amazon recognition meter. You can see me talking. And then you see this trend for last hour, which is not moving. And you see an engagement meter there that's stuck at 50%. So I'm going to turn on something, which is pretty much one of Amazon's AI services, which is actually Amazon recognition. And it's actually pretty much an API call. We've pretty much done an API call, brought it into a web service to actually make this happen to you. Okay, so let me go ahead and click on start recognition right now. Okay, in a while, you're going to see a few things happening here. Okay, now firstly, it's now starting to do a few things. It's identifying there's a person's face there. It's telling you things like, roughly how the age are. I'm flattered, things I could be as young as 23, right? It's giving me a sense of, what kind of state I'm in. It thinks I'm based off what it's reading of me. It's assuming that I'm probably calm. I'm maybe 5% confused. No, I don't think so, right? But yeah, so it's just giving you a generic view of it. Now, here's another interesting thing. You'll also see right at the bottom, it's actually welcoming me. So that's my name, Suresh, as I've introduced myself. It's actually welcoming me. Why is that happening? Because earlier today, I've actually uploaded a photo of myself. Think of it as our IC or identity photo, maybe about from 5 years back. So I just uploaded that into the system so that every time I come inside here, the system can actually identify and let me know that, okay, I know that you're logged on, right? Now you think about the use case of this. This is not very far away from how image recognition systems work in today's immigration control, right? Every country is now trying to protect themselves from all kinds of scenarios or all kinds of, maybe even think of it as counter-terrorism efforts, if you would, right? So we want to pick up people who shouldn't be around or people who are not looking too good, looking a bit suspicious and all that. How do they do that very quickly in a crowd of like hundreds of thousands of people coming through immigration every day in various parts of the world? And one way where AI ML actually helps is through something like this, right? So imagine scanning through hundreds and thousands of faces and it's quickly picking out and identifying, so something's not right. This person, there's a certain characteristics of this person is not looking calm, or is quickly saying that, hey, I based off a global database of citizens, I know that all these people are recognized, but there's this unrecognized face in this group of people is coming in, right? So here's how AI ML is actually changing the way we do things. It's not, we used to do this by simply eyeballing folks, and you pretty much, what you're doing through mechanisms like this is pretty much just changing the approach. You're doing the same thing, nothing has changed. We've always done things the same way, but what has changed is you're pretty much accelerating the process so that you could do things faster and better. That's all there is to it. Now, let's come back to what our conversation is about, because I am going to introduce AWS's technology to you. And I particularly mentioned this right at the start. I said, I'm going to use this to start introducing how AWS sees this in 3 different layers. And to do that, let's talk about what's going on here, right? So first thing here, in order for this system to recognize that I am who I am, right? There's a few things that's going on. Firstly, it has a set of inputs that is captured over a period of time to figure out that something is a face or something is not a face. And obviously, it's also captured thousands of information from people from all kinds of looks, shapes, colors, facial features to determine things like whether someone is calm or angry, right? Certainly a computer can't predict without any initial input as to what is going on in this image. Remember how computers read? Most of you here would probably get this. They don't see the image that we're seeing. All it's reading is in bits and bytes, right? So it's like 1001111. But whatever form that comes out in, right? It's still trying to do a prediction here, right? And that's inputs. You need to take in a set of inputs, and then you've got to train an algorithm to effectively then actually build up a model or a solution, right? So that's pretty much what the AI model is. And then effectively then once you figure out, okay, this is how it works, you deploy it. Now let's go a little bit more into this. Okay, so let me just click on to the next. Okay. So what I just showed you there, let's just talk a little bit about what I just said a while ago, right? So you saw that. So I told you, right? So computer needs to see millions of examples. That's your building phase, right? So you're trying to build a set of data that it understands, collecting data, making sense of it. Then you need to train the computer to actually map that input to output. So to decide whether when I'm smiling, that means I'm happy. When I'm frowning, that means I'm not too happy or I'm upset or I'm angry. It could be that either one of those two, right? So that's the training phase. And then after you've done that, you've actually got to deploy those inputs and outputs, all right, to an actual scenario, which is what we just saw here, right? So the system has already been developed, but what's it doing right now? It's actually looking at live people coming on the system, like myself. I came on live there, and it's then trying to say, okay, here's my input, here's the facial features, I'm picking all of this up, and here's my output to you, back to you. I'm identifying your Suresh. I'm letting you know this is your expressions. I'm predicting this is probably likely to be your age group, right? So it's doing a few sets of things. So this whole phase, obviously AI is a lot more than that, but I'm just trying to simplify it, right? So what was going on is simply this: building, training, and deploying. Now here's where it gets interesting. A lot of us say that AI ML is out of reach, right? It's not exactly, because think of the skill sets that's required to do all of this. Let's start with build. Now, with build, you don't really need an AI expert to do this part. Think about it, right? All you need is any one of us today can tell a machine whether someone is frowning or smiling, because we know, we understand, we already know what this means. So we can pretty much just inform a computer and say, hey, this image, this means this is a car, this is a dog, this is a cat, etc., right? So we are informing the computer of that. You don't need deep expertise for that. So arms and leg services, right? So humans, any one of us could pretty much do this. Now let's talk about the next part, right? So training, computers making models to actually map inputs to outputs. Here, we're talking about data scientists here, right? Data scientists are going to try to make sense of all the data that's coming in. They're going to develop algorithms to actually say, okay, when the bits, these bits and bytes actually translate to something. And obviously, you do not have time to do translation work so quickly doing manually, right? You've got to develop algorithms that quickly predicts and actually develops a solution for what you're trying to create. And a lot of people, I mean, those of you who are very familiar, sorry, let me go back a bit. Those of you who are familiar with artificial intelligence and machine learning, you're particularly familiar with the concept of convolutional neural networks, right? So all those three layers, well, one all the way up to, as many layers CNNs if you want, right? But typically we're talking about between 3 to 5. So you start putting in inputs to actually make sense of it. And data scientists are the folks who actually develop this stuff. Now that's the whole building stage. Now what about deployment? Who does this? What kind of skill sets are we talking about here? We're typically dealing with AI developers. So these are folks who have a bit of data science knowledge, but they're also able to bring in, like pretty much make a call into all the work that's done by data scientists and effectively map it into an application or solution. So they have some computer skill sets, but they've also got a bit of AI understanding. So they're typically your AI developers. So your skill sets revolve around here. And when you look at it this way, you also start realizing, hey, can AI and ML be actually made accessible to all kinds of organizations with different kinds of skill sets? Not all organizations can go out and hire data scientists and AI developers. Sometimes they have a great idea, they want to get going quickly, and they don't want to spend time trying to develop a new algorithm when an existing one is out there, right? Think about it. Why would you spend the time doing that? Your value as a business is to probably create an impact using the AI technology, but it's not the AI technology itself, right? So let's look a little bit into the three layers that I was telling you about where it concerns AWS. AWS approaches this in these three ways. We look at it from the top to bottom top to the bottom, right? So we've got AI services, we've got machine learning services, we've got machine learning frameworks and infrastructure. Now let's talk about what I just said again about skill sets. Now let's say you're an organization that has, you've got maybe a programmer or a developer, right? That's all you have. You don't have anyone who understands AI fully end to end, but you have people who have the knowledge of how it actually works. Now, for those kind of organizations, you probably don't have to do too much. You can actually make use of Amazon's artificial intelligence service or cognitive capabilities to actually quickly build up your solutions. All you have to do is make API calls into this existing services, right down to vision, speech, language, chatbots, pull those services and pump it into your application, and you're done. You do not need to have a data scientist. You do not need an AI developer to actually create a solution making use of AI services from AWS. Right? Pretty quickly, you can get that done. Now, let's talk about the next layer, right? So machine learning services. So let's say you're out looking for data scientists and AI developers, but not everyone is going to be an expert. Maybe you're looking for someone who has some entry level data scientist or an entry level AI developer. What are we going to do with those folks? Now, for those folks, that's where Amazon Sagemaker comes up, and it's particularly under this layer called machine learning services. Here, your entry level data scientists and your entry level AI developers will be able to quickly develop algorithms and actually develop real solutions for your organizations, and can actually create even what you call your specialty for your organization, or think of it as your trade secret, your AI algorithm by yourself. And you don't need a top data scientist or a top AI developer to actually do that for you. You pretty much just need a few good guys, and you can get this going straight away. That's your machine learning services. And lastly, we've got machine learning frameworks and infrastructure. Now, these are obviously designed for your hardcore experts dealing with machine learning science. And typically, your top data scientists are often operating here. They are really building everything on end-to-end. They're building it off frameworks like TensorFlow, etc. And what they need is high-performing infrastructure, which AWS provides. We've got one of the most powerful systems here. Some of you would be familiar with it. So P3DN is one of it, right? You can actually make use of that. We even have these days, people talk about, hey, when I'm doing machine learning work, I need to do inferencing, right? And when I'm doing inferencing, that costs quite a bit for me to build an entire building an entire physical hardware that's actually, I'm putting in so much power, but it's actually being used for everything. But all I want is only for the inferencing bit to be really fast and powerful. And AWS actually has that, making use of inferential chips, for instance, right? So we've got our unique positioning there. You can actually read a lot more about it. I won't talk too much about it because that isn't the point of this today's session, right? So I just wanted to keep it short on that. Today, what I'm going to focus on is share a little bit very quickly, just walk through with you some of the AI services we have there. And I will go into then talking about the machine learning service that we have, namely Amazon SageMaker, right? So these are the two areas we're going to cover. I am just going to stop here for a moment, just to quickly have a look at the chat screen, just to get a sense of where I should pivot or change the positioning into my next steps, right? So give me a second. I'm going to stop sharing my screen right now. Let me have a look at your chat and see the questions. Okay, great. So all the questions here so far are not in relation to AI. It's probably technical difficulties to enter, going in and out. So, okay, that's fine. So just probably let me ask you this question then. How are you guys okay for me to now start going on to share with you a little bit more about some of the AI services that we have? Or would you like me to cover anything else in particular? Just any one of you, just a very quick, just type in the chat box. I'm just going to get a general sentiment there. Okay, right. So I see it. Okay there. Okay. All right, fine. Okay to share AI service. Okay, great. Okay. Amber wants more on AMI. Okay, so today's session we won't cover a lot more on AMI, unfortunately, Amber, but we definitely have workshops on that. So yeah, but I'll take note of that as feedback. That's something we'll cover the next time. Thanks, Amber, anyway, for that. Okay. Okay, focus. Yep, we will be doing developer. I will be showing definitely a few demos. Okay, great. So I think most of the things that you guys are talking about, I will be covering it. I will be talking about SageMaker. We will not be doing any comparison against Azure or any other competitor product. What we're going to do is we're just going to share with you the power of Amazon SageMaker. Okay. All right. Let me share my screen now again. Come on. Okay. You should be able to see my screen right about now. Okay. Now, let's walk through the AI services that we have. Now, very quickly, I'm going to expand this thing called services. This is the actual AWS console, as you can see there. Now, under this group called machine learning, you can see a whole set of services here. Some of them are AI services, and obviously, we've got our machine learning service, Amazon Sagemaker here as well. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to start off with AI services in particular. I'm going to walk through some of them, not all of them, some in details, some we're just going to just explain what this is about, right? So I'm going to start off with Code Guru in particular. Okay, now what's Code Guru about? All right. Now, Code Guru is basically an Amazon tool, right, to particularly improve your application performance, efficiency, and code quality, particularly for your Java applications, right? What it does, think of it as, you've developed, a lot of us often who are coders or programmers, we develop lots of great codes, or we think we have developed great code, and there is something in it which doesn't really work out very well in terms of it being optimally ready for it to actually deliver optimal performance at the final outcome, right? So great source code, but when you start digging deeper into your source code, you start finding redundant lines, you start finding things that could have been optimized faster or better for the end product. So this is what Amazon Code Guru does. This is actually a machine AI service that we provide, right? You pretty much can actually put in an application, do a profiling or reviewing, and it actually gives you recommendations very quickly on your code, right? And it connects to things like GitHub and all of that as well. So that's really, really powerful if you think about it. Imagine you, instead of turning to your programmers on your right and left, and they are also stuck trying to finish up their set of codes that they need to finish for the day. They can't spend the time. Instead of doing that, you turn to a machine learning guru, if you would, who actually looks at all your code and then starts telling you, hey, okay, your code, these are some of the things to look at, improve on. Here are some inefficiencies in your code and stuff like that. So Amazon Code Guru is an AI service that does that. And again, all the AI services, I'll mention this one time and I'll mention it again at the end. What I'm going through are now AI services. The top layer I was talking about, no special expertise required. You don't need AI skill sets. You don't need machine learning skill sets. All you need to know is understand that this service exists and simply know how to call those services making use of API. So a lot of these AI services I'm going to cover, very often you're going to see things like API references, because that's going to allow you to actually pull out those services to actually develop them or embed them in your application. All right. So these are all your AI services. All right. So let me go on a bit more further. So we've got Code Guru. Now, this is one of my favorite ones. I'm going to go on into Comprehend next. So that's Code Guru. Next one is Comprehend. Okay, I am going to go ahead and launch this. Now, Comprehend can do a lot of things, but what I really like about it is particularly sentiment analysis. So I'm going to actually pick up a set of text here. Let me see whether this is it. Yeah, okay. So I've actually put in a set of text here, right? So you can read that. So what it says is, the good news is that April-June quarter is likely to have been its worst, but the bad news is things are unlikely to improve significantly anytime soon. So you can look at this, right? So it's a whole statement here. We're going to do sentiment analytics on this set of news here, right? So someone who say, so think about it, right? When you are reading this as a human being, you're already straight away looking at this saying, yeah, I mean, this is mixed, right? So someone is telling you the good stuff and someone is also telling you the bad stuff. Now, let's analyze this right now, making use of Amazon Comprehend. Let's see how the system figures out the sentiment here. So I'm going to click on sentiment, and this is what it's saying. So look at the results right at the bottom. Look at this. So the closer it gets to 1, the stronger it is in terms of what likely it is. So it's actually telling you this is actually mixed sentiments, which is pretty accurate when you think about it, right? So 0.9 is mixed sentiment here. Now, some of you may be asking me this. You looked at it and say, hey, I see positive, I see negative, I saw mixed. What is neutral? How is this different from mixed, right? There is a difference. Neutral standpoint means you don't reveal your good or bad sentiments. You're simply delivering a statement. Mixed is very different. You are actually telling someone, here is the good news and here is the bad news, right? Or, I mean, in this case, the words are very clear, but think about it. Someone is delivering a statement that says, hey guys, this is great stuff, but I think we could also improve on this aspect. When you listen to that, that's actually not a neutral comment. That's actually a mixed sentiment, right? But if a neutral comment would be something like someone saying something very factually, we delivered the product on time. That's it. There's nothing positive or negative or mixed about it. It's simply a statement being made it's a neutral comment, right? So that appears something like that being said will appear as neutral. So that's kind of the difference between neutral and mixed, in case you looked at that and wondered, why are you having 4 different types of sentiments there? So imagine this being used on a wide scale. Now, I'm showing you a demo. This is actually a full product, meaning to say you can put in millions of documents through Amazon Comprehend, and it will actually pull out sentiments for you, and it will actually classify your data for you, right? You'll pick out things like entities for you. You'll pick out key phrases. It will even tell you the language that's being used, etc. All right. And you can see the syntax that's being used as well, saying what are all this stuff that's happening here. Okay, so whether it's an adverb, verb, etc. Right. So this is what Amazon Comprehend does. So imagine how powerful a tool like this can be used for lots of scenarios. You can also see something interesting here. You saw Comprehend right below here. There's Comprehend Medical as well, right? So we actually have this particularly dealing with medical documents. So think about how powerful that would be without even you needing to build a full machine learning service from end to end. You can actually make use of an existing service. So let's go a bit further. I am going to very quickly browse through Forecast, Fraud Detector, and Kendra before I go into Lex. All right. Now, I'm just going to talk through them instead of showing it to you. Now, Forecast is basically something that Amazon has been doing for you. So Amazon.com, we have our retail front, right? So very often you need to forecast how low your supply is going, or even think about trending in terms of trying to figure out your peak in sales or when it's going to help, or seasonality in terms of when the product is going to be sold and all that. So all those years of data that Amazon collected and the kind of analytics work we did allowed us to actually release a product called Amazon Focus, which we now are making available to customers as well. So you can use the same kind of logic that we did to actually do forecasting related work, very concerns. Typically, we're talking about things like dealing with sales related matters, right? Think about it, or even supply chain related matters. So typically, forecast is used for that. Fraud detector, right? So simply very well, the name speaks for itself. It's basically detect fraud. Widely used, in organized, particularly in fintech environments. Fraud detectors are very strongly used. You've got Amazon Kendra. So this is one of our latest release. Now, Kendra is pretty powerful. Think of it as a search engine that looks, but that's for your enterprise, right? Now, Google is a search engine as well, as an example, right? I'm not talking about a brand here. I'm just talking about a search engine here. Google search engine, you put in stuff, it's quickly crawling through the web, giving you results. Now, imagine having something like this, right? For your enterprise, you've got tons and tons of documents for enterprise, and sometimes it's really difficult for you to quickly figure out some of the info or knowledge that you need to quickly solve something, or just wanting to get the knowledge to go and perform a task. Now, Amazon Kendra can actually solve that problem. You pretty much just plug it in and make it read your entire set of documents or database there, and that's it. It's going to read all that, and the next time someone comes in and types in a question on a search box, it's going to give you the results that you need straight away, really quickly. Okay, so those three, I didn't want to go through it later. I just wanted to share with you what those three were about. Now I'm going to go and let's do a little bit. I'm going to go into Lex now. So that's something I will do a little bit more into. Now Lex is basically our chatbot engine, which is based off, obviously, those of you who understand machine learning again, is dealing with natural language processing, similar to all the text-related stuff that you saw a while ago, right? So this is dealing with natural language processing, but on a text basis, and you can actually build chatbots here, etc. Now, there are a few things you can do here. Now, very quickly, what I am going to do, I'm just picking up a fake one right here just to give you a sense of it. Actually, you know what? Let's do one from scratch. I'm going to do something called booking a trip right now. So let me go ahead and turn on a few things. Don't worry that I'm not explaining all these bits. So these aren't I'm not saying it's not the important parts, but in the interest of time, I wanted to show you the cool stuff, if I can put it that way. Right. So I'm just going to go on to show you how this works. Okay, this happens sometimes. Let me just try that again. Okay, great. Now, Amazon Lex works in a very, very simple way. Now, very often when you walk up to a customer service, right, you have certain intentions, right? You say, hey, I need to do this, I need to do that. So those intentions, right? So think of it as this is a service. Think of it as someone is walking up to, say, a hotel concierge, and they want to book a car, right? So that's your intention. You want to book a car. And under here, you have what you call sample utterances. You can actually add in your own ones, obviously. But again, this is just a sample one, right? You are actually saying that, look, the way I would actually communicate something about having a car reservation, these are the ways I would communicate. I would say, make a car reservation, reserve a car, book a car. Now, what Lex does next is it picks up all this set of text and it quickly figures out, okay, there are probably like 30 or 40 or maybe 50 different ways you would ask about car reservation, just making use of the three simple sample utterances you had actually provided, or utterances you had actually provided to Lex, right? So it will figure out, okay, I know now this is your intent. You are going to book a car. Now the next step is this, right? You said, okay, you want to book a car, but I need to get a few details from you. This is where slots come in here, right? What is here, slots are all the details that you need in order to fulfill a request. So what you want to know from the chatbot will actually start asking the person who's asking the question about, hey, tell me what time you need to pick up, where is the city you want to pick it up from, what date you want to pick it up on, when are you going to return it, what's your age, and what's the car type you're looking for. And then it will tell you, okay, based off all these inputs you have given me, here's the price of booking the car, and I've confirmed the reservation, please accept or not, right? So simple chatbot. Now, you also notice something here. There are some values here like pickup city, date, return date, driver age, where it's actually making use of existing Amazon variables. Now, you're not limited by just that. These are all built in. You can actually create your own one as well. So under car type, this is obviously not an Amazon built-in functionality in terms of types of car types. So you can actually create your own car types here. So if I clicked on under slot types, car type values, I put in things like deluxe, premium, and basic, right? So you're able to fully customize this. So once you put that, you're actually able to get a full chatbot going. Now, I just wanted to show you very quickly in terms of how you can easily do this. I'm not going to spend time doing this end to end. Instead, I'm going to show you a live demo of this, something that we built. Well, not we. Think of it as a student has built this for WhatsApp. Let me just call this out. Okay, so here's a WhatsApp. And what I'm going to demonstrate is someone trying to book a travel insurance. So this is actually powered by Amazon Lex, but actually being pushed through into a WhatsApp technology. So Amazon Lex is your back-end technology. It's not a front-end technology. You can actually build it and insert it into all kinds of conversational bot services, from Facebook Messenger to WhatsApp to SMS to anything that you want. All right. So in this case, this is a WhatsApp service. So I'm just going to ask, let's talk about travel insurance. So I'm going to say, I would like to get travel insurance. So you can see me typing that right now. Okay, so it's straight away asking, what country will you be traveling to? So I'm going to say, I don't know. I mean, I know that COVID-19 is preventing us from traveling. I'm an optimist, so I'm still going to say something like Malawi, okay? And then what's the start date? So now notice, I don't have to follow any syntax formats, right? I can do it in any way. I like my own style. I can say 9 November 08. Look at the style I'm putting in, right? So I'm saying 2008 literally here. Okay. And it's asking me now what's the end date. So I'm going to say 11 November 08. And this is a type of premium. So I'm going to say I'm interested in the deluxe insurance. And it's asking me for my birth date. So now I'm going to try something else. So let's say April 9. By the way, that's my birth date. I wanted all of you to know that so that you can wish me. All right. Now, then, all right. So I have you down for it. So it's replying saying, I have you down for a deluxe plan. All right. For your trip from Malawi from this period of time to this period of time. So notice it's accurately telling you that, right? So the date and time and all that. Should I proceed the process? I'm going to say yes. Right. It's also giving you a rate that it computed at $30. So it says, yes, I'm happy for this. Say thank you. The application has been successfully processed. Done. So imagine this interaction being connected to your database at the back end. Everything is actually flowing end to end. Your chatbots are interacting with your database, right? Or it could be a NoSQL or SQL. That's completely up to you. And everything is being updated live, directly working through your chatbot. So really powerful, making use of natural language processing services. Okay, so that's Amazon Lex. Let's go on a bit more. So we talked about Lex. Let's go on into Amazon Personalized. So Amazon Personalized, I'm not going to show you what I just wanted to do, is just get there, just to explain what this is about. Now, Amazon Personalized also works off something that we built at Amazon.com, our retail stuff again. Now, a lot of you, very often when you go into Amazon.com, if you I'm assuming a lot of you have been using Amazon.com. If you have not, you should. All right, that's all I want to say. Now, get in there and you start purchasing items. And very often, after you've selected an item to purchase, have you noticed how it's actually telling you a recommendation like, hey, these are some of the items that you should also get based off things that they've observed, maybe by similar people who are very similar to you. It could be someone who's right next to you in the same school environment. So it's getting a sense of, okay, I think people here are all trying to get textbooks for the university. So you start recommending textbooks to you. Now, that kind of logic is something Amazon has now built up. We've created something called Amazon Personalized, where you could actually bring this power of this engine into your services, your e-commerce storefront, or your kind of, or any other type of recommendation services that you wanted to build. You could actually bring that in, pull that using API calls, and you can actually quickly build that up, right? So really easy to use, and you don't even need to try to build this from scratch, right? So again, really powerful tool there. Now that's Amazon Personalized. There is Amazon Poly, which is basically a text-to-speech software. So you type in something and then you can say listen to speech, and then it's going to tell you that. Now language and regions available, you can actually see here. So quite a few languages. We've got Japanese, Korean, Polish, Portuguese, Russian, Spanish, Welsh, etc. So quite a lot of languages there, right? You can see Chinese Mandarin there as well. Well, I prefer to call it Mandarin. Okay, so that's Poly. So let's go on a bit more here. And I think I demonstrated recognition to you guys a while ago, right? So I'm not going to go into that. Basically, that's your computer vision logic. So you can actually make use of an API service to actually deliver solutions based off Amazon recognition. You've got text track. Now, this one, really powerful stuff. Now, comprehend was all about sentiment analytics. Now, let's look at text track instead. Now, text track is another very powerful tool where you can put in a whole set of documents. A lot of us deal with unstructured data or years and years of both physical and non-physical digital data. But sometimes you're saying that I've got so much information and I need to pull that out and repurpose them. Now, how are you going to look through all this data and make sense of them, manually? It's going to take a lot of time. Now, imagine, look at this here. Here's a sample document that's come in. Now, making use of this, right? TextTrack actually develops this for you. This is his raw text. And it actually creates things like, here's a table. Based off this, it's actually generating a column for you, employer name, any company, right? History, start date, end date, etc. Right? Family date. So it's creating this whole sets of columns that you could use to create tables. You could create forms, making use of full name, phone number, home address, and mailing address. So imagine how powerful this is for organizations that just need to digitize very quickly. And I'm using this word very loosely. I'm not talking about digitizing in terms of trying to transform your service to your customers. Think of it as just the internal processes, if you would. We have so much data, but I need to make sense of this data in order to do my next steps. How do I do that very quickly? Make use of Amazon TextTrack, because it's going to pull that data out and quickly deliver things to you in a very logical fashion, right? So think of it. A while ago, I shared with you Kendra, which can crawl through document and throw you results based off queries you ask it. Then you've got Amazon TextTrack that actually pulls out and creates tables and forms for you. And then you've got Amazon Comprehend, which does sentiment analytics. Put these three together, you can pretty much create a very powerful service for yourself, be it for an external facing customer or just for your internal organization, right? So those AI services come together to actually think of it as very easily allowing you to actually make a lot of those transformational efforts that you thought was always out of reach or very expensive or too far. It's going to take a lot of time. No, it's not. It's going to be a lot more faster than you think it's going to be, right? Now, that's your text track. I'm not going to go through too much to transcribe and translate, but I'll just show it to you. I want to go on into Sagemaker in the last 15 minutes. So this is basically real-time transcription. All right. So what it means is as you talk, it's going to do a live transcription of what is being said. So again, if you're in the media line, you are doing auto captioning or auto subtitling, you can imagine how a service like Amazon Transcribe can work very powerfully there, right? Very quickly again. So that's Amazon Transcribe. Um, and translate again, enterprise services. Now a lot of you may look at it and say, hey, translate services, I already see this all over the internet. So many people provide translate services. Yes, they do, but you got to think in terms of how many of them have packaged it in a fashion where you could use it for your internal enterprise and integrate it into application in a way that works only for you. So that's why this is really powerful. It's not about translation efforts and all that. It's also about how does this work in integration with all the other services you're going to build, right? That's the part a lot of people often forget about. They think of AI ML as a silo. AI ML cannot occur in a silo. It needs to be delivered as a final solution. And when you are able to provide services like this at an enterprise level, you are able to scale much faster and better, right? So, so here are some of the things. Now, there's even Tamil here, so I'm just going to put in a Tamil word here. It's okay. I'm telling you the truth. I'll tell you the truth whether they really got it right. Right. This is correct. So, so I'm going to say it in Tamil. Those of you who understand Tamil. So, Pudiya Talaimurai was live. So, Pudiya Talaimurai means new generation. All right. So, it's actually translating that live as well. Okay. So, that's translate. Now, I'm going to, no, I won't pause. I will allow you guys to ask me questions in a bit. Right. Right at the end. So we're going to have 15 minutes of questions and answers once we stop at 5, right? So don't worry about that. So I'm going to go next into Amazon SageMaker, which is now what we consider our machine learning service layer. So refresher again, all I've done for you is showed you all the types of AI services you could quickly call on without even having machine learning or data science expertise, right? You could call on and create a solution. Now, let's say you are now in a different environment. Say, hey, I do have a data scientist or I have a great AI developer here. They know some stuff. I think using them, I want to create something that's proprietary to me, a special secret sauce, and I'm going to use this to create a revolutionary service or a product, right? You could be doing that. Now, how can you do that? You can actually develop your own secret sauce, making use of Amazon SageMaker, right? So I will show you how that works. So here's Amazon SageMaker. Now, there's a lot of things here. There's ground truth, which allows you to label data very quickly. Remember a while ago, I said there's arms and legs services. You need someone to tell you that something's a cat or dog. Now, ground truth in SageMaker does that job faster in the sense that instead of you trying to label like 300 example, I'm just giving you a fake example, right? Let's say you've got 300 images that you need to figure out whether they're cat or dog. Instead of putting in 300 images, you just need to put in your first 10 images and say, hey, this is a cat and dog, and then let ground truth take over to quickly assess all the rest of the other remaining images and let you know whether, and instead ask you as a reviewer, hey, I have labeled your data as such, is this right or wrong? So based off the way you just say yes or no, it quickly starts deciphering the rest of the data and it arrives at the conclusion of labeling your data much faster than you would have been doing manually one by one by one by one. All right. So ground truth in Amazon SageMaker does that. So a lot of people often ask this question, right? Say, hey, I need to first label my data. It's going to take forever to do it. No, not true. If you make use of ground truth on Amazon SageMaker, you can actually do this a lot more faster than you think. And this is not just dealing with images, right? I just use image as an example. You're talking about all types of data here. Okay. Let's go on to see Amazon SageMaker in practice. Now, the example I'm going to use here is this, right? Let's say you are let's say you're a university, okay? Now, or maybe even a school, university or a school, doesn't matter, whichever one. And you're trying to now say, okay, my students are going from level 4 to level 5 next. They're going on to grade 4, grade 5. I want to regroup my students in a way where they would learn best, right? So I want to identify some patterns amongst them so that I can kind of group them in a way. Now, again, please don't look at this as questioning, hey, are you trying to group all the high scorers together? Are you trying to group all the low scorers together? Is this what you're doing? Because we shouldn't be prescribing this kind of thing. No, that's not what you're prescribing as well. I'm just trying to give you an example as to what we're trying to do, right? So think of someone who's just in a situation where all he has is data of students and their scores, or like let's say math scores, English scores, etc. So he's got a few scores, and making use of that, he's trying to quickly decide how could he cluster and put all the students into different types of classes and all that. And we're going to let, what kind of algorithm are we going to use here in SageMaker? I'm going to make use of k-means algorithm to do this, right? So think of it as clustering groups of objects which are very similar together. Those of you who have done statistics, k-means sounds very familiar, right? Those of you who haven't, just think of it as it's a statistical approach where it tries to group similar elements together as possible and try to space them out into different groupings, if you would, right? So that's what it does. Now I'm going to show you how that's done as a sample. So here, I'm going to do this. Now, this is what's going to work. Don't worry about the code. I'm not going to teach you coding here today. Don't look at all of this and start getting worried about, do I need to know all this code? Not really. A lot of the times you can get all of these sample codes and just make minor tweaks, right? In this case, this is sample codes with minor tweaks, in fact, as well, right? So this isn't something I did from scratch. Something I did from scratch is somewhere else, and I can't share that, right? Because that's unique to us, right? So in this case, this is something that's shareable. It's an open lab environment, okay? So what are the first steps I'm going to do? I'm actually going to load a set of data from Amazon S3, our storage service, right? So I'm going to pull in a CSV file that I had in there called studentsperformance.csv. And from there, I'm going to just look at the data and say, okay, very quickly, figure out, okay, I just want to confirm what were all the data taken in there, right? So it's actually picking up interesting data like gender, race, ethnicity, parental level of education, lunch, test preparation course, math score, reading score, writing score, right? So I looked at all of this, say, okay, you know what? This is great. But I think I'm going to try to find a pattern amongst them by just making use of their math score, reading score, and writing score, and then group them into their respective classes. So I do a bit of cleaning up. So I start saying, okay, I want you to reduce the data frame to just focusing on these three columns here. Math score, reading score, writing score, right? So that's clearly understood. You can see that here. So then it frames that up, and then it tells me now, okay, now I've broken them up in this way for you. You now have them as just simply math score, reading score, writing score. I don't need to know anything else about them. Okay. And then I do a few other things to clean up the data to confirm there are no missing values. So you don't want a situation where you've got math score, writing score, or no reading score, and no reading score, or math score, reading score, and no writing score, right? So I'm doing a missing value scan here. So I'm just getting rid of missing values. Well, actually figuring out if there's missing values. In this case, there was none, which is good. So I don't have to do any major cleanup. So then I do some conversion to 30 to float 32. So don't worry about all of that. I won't go too much into that. All right. Now, in here, this is where SageMaker starts coming in proper. Then I say, okay, SageMaker, I want you to pull in an algorithm you already have built in. Can you bring in k-means, which is an algorithm that we already have on SageMaker? So I'm going to bring in there, and I'm going to tell SageMaker, I want you to group them into 7 clusters and find some patterns out of this. All right, 7. So that means think of it as I've got 7 classes I want to allocate next year, right? So I want these students grouped into 7 classes. So it runs the job. All right. Now I want to share this with you. Now this is the total time it took. All right. So you see this part that says training seconds and billable seconds. You look at all the data, train the data. It's only going to, despite all this work you did, you only ever have to pay for 60 seconds to after all the work that you put in to actually build this data up. So that's all it takes, and it's not really expensive. So a lot of people often look at computing, cloud computing, and say, there's lots of stuff. I got to build up this, I got to build up that. I said, not exactly. Through SageMaker and the way we do it, and the way we build, things becomes transparent and very clear to you exactly what you're going to be charged for, right? So it's telling you a billable seconds here, 60 seconds. And let's look at the results here. Okay, I'm going to pull that out. Now, very quickly, after doing a bit of conversion, this is what is coming up to. Now, notice the patterns here. What it's telling me is the 7 classes here. Now, this is a generic patterns if identified. Say, okay, here are students all, I find these students are all within the same score range. You see this group of students within the same score range. Now, here's an interesting one, right? Class number 2. You see 70 here for reading, writing, but they are struggling with math though. So it actually picked that out as a unique group of people. So imagine how useful that would be in a classroom environment where you've got a class of good performance, but they are just suffering with math, and putting them together sometimes can actually help allow the teacher to focus on the weaker areas, saying that this class, let's spend more time on math. So think about something like that. That's just an example, by the way. I'm not prescribing any pedagogy, by the way. All right. Now then, group 3, quite similar scores. Group 4, quite similar. And group 5, again, quite interesting, right? So you've got people who are scoring okay in math, but not so good in reading and writing. So it's picking out a very interesting group here again. And lastly, you've got group 6, which are again quite similar scores. So you can imagine how clustering actually saves the time. Making use of k-means clustering can actually save the time. Imagine you're dealing with millions, and schools often dealing with, well, not millions, but you're talking about tens of thousands of students, right? Trying to quickly make sense of where they should be grouped or finding out their weak spot. This is an exercise to group classes, but this exercise could simply be even to figure out where do I have students who are very uniquely strong in a particular area, but uniquely weak in another area, and can I pull them up to actually give them special supervision? So things like that could actually help out in a scenario like this. So that's just k-means clustering. Now, I just wanted to show you this very simple example to show you the power of Sagemaker on terms of how it could be done, making use of Jupyter notebooks and all of that. Now, if you go into the home section, that's a lab environment that we built from scratch. Now, there's actually tons and tons of examples. You can even call on examples from, take note of this, AWS Marketplace, meaning to say, if someone else has created a special algorithm out there, they can actually sell it through AWS Marketplace, which you could make use of to develop your solution for you. So your algorithm is not limited to just what's here, right? Or what you have developed. You have so much algorithms that we have in here, right? Easily, I think right now we're talking, I mean, the last I saw, it's easily about 400 to 500 over algos you can actually easily pick up from and actually develop solutions from. So it's immense here. So even, this is what I mean by even if you're entry-level data scientist or even if an expert data scientist, and we are seeing this a lot in AWS, even with groups who used to do this at the expert level dealing with machine learning frameworks, they've started shifting to SageMaker, some of these groups, because it's the time taken to actually do this. You say that, okay, I am an expert. I know this stuff inside out, but I still want to use SageMaker because it gets me there faster. I just want a quick algo that I could pick up from, and then I'll go in and tweak it further. So it saves me the time to develop something from scratch, right? So in that sense, it's really powerful as well. So don't ever look at it always in terms of, I'm an expert, I don't need this. Yep, you don't need this, but what if it saves you time to do that initial building up all that algo? This saves you a lot of time, right? Um, so that's pretty much it for SageMaker. And with that, I have completed my demonstration of all the services provided by AWS again through AI and ML. Again, just to recap again, I just wanted to come back here. These are the ways in which AWS approaches this. We've got AI services, we've got ML services, which is SageMaker. We just saw that. And lastly, we got machine learning frameworks and our infrastructure options to actually build all those machine learning solutions that you want at a high end level. Okay, so that's pretty much it for today. We now have 15 minutes for questions. And once we hit about 5:15, we'll be wrapping it up. I'll be handing it back to Khairul. For now, let me just look at some of the questions. Okay. Okay, some of it has already been answered. Ha. Someone here, I think this person is actually from AWS. This is Michelle. Okay. SageMaker able to categorize string data and not. Yes. It's able to do that, Jai. But you are just able to. Okay. It actually depends on how you actually ran what kind of data you've actually pulled in. Firstly, how you pull in data. That's one part. Let's say you pulled in the right fashion. You're actually able to categorize string data. The second part is, let's say you didn't even do that. The other part you could do is you could actually clean it up, making use of a few. You saw a while ago, actually, I did a bit of conversions there on SageMaker. I didn't show you guys, but I ran through it very quickly. So you could actually do that as well. So it's just that in that example, I had to do a conversion, right? So yeah, you can. You are able to categorize string data with a bit of tweaks. And by the way, there is a sentiments analytics algo example inside there as well. So Any other questions? Please ask them in the chat window. So I know you guys are muted. All of you are muted. So feel free to ask in the chat window any questions you have. Okay. All right. It seems like there are no other questions. Yeah, questions around. Okay, I'll just look at. I know some of these questions were answered, but I just wanted to cover them. They are good questions about. There are questions on pricing and all of that. So all those pricings are transparent. You feel free to, yeah, like what is mentioned there. Go ahead at any point in time. Check those pricings, right? On AWS console is completely made there. No, Joanne, good question. So can SageMaker propose a suitable, so the question asked by Joanne was, can SageMaker propose a suitable algorithm based on the data set? No, it doesn't do that per se. No, that's going to be done by you. So it's not going to do auto proposing. Any other questions? Okay, so this is a question about data cleansing. So the question here is, how do we identify any outliers in the data? So you've got to actually, yeah. So SageMaker, while this is about building the machine learning algo, notice earlier I was doing a bit of cleanup of data. You will need to put in certain codes to figure out outliers in data. I mean, for the purpose of this session, I don't have time to show you that, but you can actually, I don't even need to. If you Google very quickly on GitHub, you see thousands of examples where people show you how to quickly filter out your outlying data if you don't want them inside there. But the question I would often ask is, sometimes I'd ask is it important to actually know your outlier data or not, and for what purpose you're using it for or not using it for? So answer those questions. When you are dealing with machine learning and data, always take a step back to find out what is it that you are trying to ask. The question is the most important thing in machine learning, AI, ML, and data analytics. Never forget that. If your question, you get your question very clearly, you know what's your customer request, and you know which customers, what request you're trying to fulfill for customer, then you can actually make sense of that, right? Okay, let's see. Yes, yes, Graham. So yes, there is a lot of machine learning models that benefits from GPU processing, obviously, simply because of the speed at which it is being done, right? So when you're dealing with like loads and loads of data, really it's not about the volume of data, but rather, how do I put this? The complexity of data and what you're trying to achieve in your algorithms is the reason why you often end up needing GPU. So when you're talking about a 5-layer CNN, for instance, right, a convolutional neural network, you're going to have immense amounts of you're going to need immense amounts of GPU. And yes, AWS does offer machine learning GPU processing. So this is actually the part I mentioned earlier is the last part. So remember I said third part, machine learning frameworks and infrastructure. We have all our GPUs services there. We have one of the most powerful ones. So if you go out and look at some of it, you'll see P3DN or P3 instances, right? So they provide that. Okay. Thanks, Graham. Okay. So let me look at this. For a common user, this is a question. For a common user, how will he select the correct algorithm to use from hundreds of algorithms in the database, right? So this is the question. Now, it's which is why we're saying, right? So let's say you are someone who does, I'm going to assume two things here. One, you're dealing with someone who doesn't understand algorithms and does not know how to pick them. If you are dealing with that situation, what I would say is the first thing to do is then try to use the AI services layer to build your solution first, right? Use that first. Then slowly build up your capability. As you're doing that, you start figuring out a lot more things, and along the way, you pick up some skill sets about understanding what algorithms are there out there, and then you start. So it's not It's never about whether someone is a common user or not. It's about what's the effort you are taking. The next part is now on you, right? So services are out there in the world to tell you this is what to do. Now it's on you as a person to say, okay, what additional things I need to know about in order for me to pick out the algorithm. So I think it's a lot of this one. I would have to say this is all about skill sets or trying to get yourself skilled at least at a basic level about some of this stuff. And it doesn't take a lot, right? So to get skill sets. So if you go, example, if you guys are signing up for AWS Educate, you go into our machine learning courses, you will actually be able to quickly learn about all the different algorithms, and it tells you for what purposes they're used for. And it only takes 10, 15 minutes to understand them. All right. Okay, then let's see. Yongki, we can, that question on the Amazon Comprehend and usage for medical data, you can probably reach out to us separately offline. So we won't be answering this question here, but do feel free to reach out to us. So the email address to reach out to is going to be put in by Oka. So my colleague Oka is on this chat window. So he's going to provide a mailbox to which you guys can ask these questions, right? So Yongki, I won't be answering this question here. Okay. Vivek has a question. So can Kendra search for answers from all documents of the enterprise? Yeah, as long as your documents are attached to Kendra and Kendra is being told that this is a database to search for, it will pretty much search for answers across all documents in enterprise, assuming you have correctly connected them to the Kendra database, which in the most cases, you should be fine. Great. Any other questions? By the way, all good questions, and they're all kinds of questions. I like it because you're having questions from people who are from different walks and different examples. And there's one particularly from Graham, he's looking at it from a university research context as well. Any more questions? Okay, I think we are coming to a close here. All right. If there are no further questions, I will be handing it off to Kairu to wrap up the session for the day.
Okay, thank you, Suresh, for the session. I hope you all enjoyed the session. But before you all go, we will need your help to scan the QR code in the screen to provide feedback for this session. After this, there will be a sign up for our next event. So yeah, let's wait for everyone to scan this QR code first. Okay, so let's proceed to the next event's QR code. So for those who haven't scanned the previous one, yeah, I put in the chat. Right, so this QR code is for the next events. So if you are interested, you can scan this QR code to sign up for our next event. Right, so it's about our service mesh, and it'll be held on 4th September, Friday at 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. Okay, so that'll be all. Thank you all for attending this event. If you all have any question, I guess you all can still put in the chat. And yeah, have a great day ahead. Thank you all.